This happened when I was 12 years old, an age old enough to be aware of my surroundings, and I have a pretty good sense of danger, but also still around that age that attracts a certain selection of creeps. We live in a decently busy neighborhood. However, we're on a dead-end block near a forest preserve, and across the street from us is a sump. And if you were to go through the forest preserve, you would find yourself in a small community park. There was this one Saturday night that a mini carnival was being held in the park. And since I wasn't doing anything with friends, my mom suggested that I go check out the carnival. She isn't the kind of mom who tells her kids not to go out past dark. She always let me do my own thing, so I did end up going. I crossed through the forest with a flashlight and eventually passed the fence that led to the park and saw lit-up carnival rides everywhere. A Ferris wheel, a mini roller coaster, some of those big spinning rides, and of course, concession stands and carnival game booths. It was late enough where it wasn't very crowded. There was also a big circus tent with the red and white stripes where I saw some people entering. I poked my head inside where I saw 4 rows of people in the audience. And on this mini stage were 3 clowns performing tricks. One was on a tricycle, one was juggling, and the other was just dancing around. Then the dancing one noticed me poking my head inside the tent, and he skipped over closer to me and started waving his index finger, signaling for me to come closer or to come onto the stage. I didn't really know. All I knew is I didn't want to do either. And so I walked away. I ran into a friend at one of the carnival games, and I hung out with him for about half an hour. Pretty soon the carnival was closing down, and everybody was starting to leave. I said goodbye to my friends and made my way towards the woods again. I was near the fence when I heard it came from behind me. It was one of the clowns, the clown that was waving me over earlier. He asked me if I wanted to check out the backstage area of the circus tent and some of the cool things the guests cannot see. I said no very quickly and walked into the forest, looking back every few seconds to make sure I wasn't being followed. And I wasn't. The clown just stood there watching me with the painted-on smile on his face, making the situation even more disturbing. When I was out of view, I began to run for a bit before I was confident he wouldn't be able to find me. I was not going to tell my mom what happened because I love being allowed out whenever I wanted, and I feared that this might ruin that it's a half-mile walk through the woods. I was probably 3/4 of the way there when I heard it again. This time, I immediately felt sick when I heard it. I turned and saw the same clown walking out from the darkness of the woods into the light of my flashlight. When he was close enough, I threw the flashlight at him and ran for it in the direction of my house. I heard him close behind me until the road was visible. Then I heard him turn around when I got home. I was breathing like I had just run a marathon, and my mom was, of course, concerned. I still didn't want to tell her what happened. So I lied and said I jogged the whole way back. After that, it never came up again. Up until the age of 14, I always had a fear of clowns. Ever since I was first greeted with one at the age of 5 at a county fair on a cold Tuesday night in November. During break, my parents were on vacation, and my sister and brother were out for the night. My friend, who I'll refer to as B, wanted to come over so that we could walk to the fair a couple blocks away. So he did. We walked to the fair, which happened to be in a big empty parking lot. We walked around for a little while and played some of the carnival games. Then we ran into a clown. He didn't speak. He just smiled, bopped around, and made silly hand motions. He resembled more of a mime than a clown, and he seemed to inch his way closer to us every few seconds. Me and B laughed. B patted him on the shoulder, and we walked away. "That was weird," I told B. "That was more creepy than weird," said B. We were walking back to my house, now on the sidewalks of the quiet Tuesday night neighborhood roads, and that's when we heard something from behind us. It was a pair of footsteps. We turned but didn't see anyone. This continued for another few minutes. B said he was freaked out and was going to go home. But I convinced him to stay with me and hang out at my place, honestly, because I was scared. Now we were sure we were being followed. We made it to the front of my house. I dug through my pocket, took out my keychain, and started looking for the right key out of the 3 in the dark. That's when B nudged me to turn around. There was a clown hiding in the next door neighbor's bushes, and he was staring at us when he noticed that we had spotted him. He emerged from the bushes and started walking over to us. I began to panic, trying each of the 3 keys until the door finally opened. We entered and slammed the door behind us. I called my parents right away, who told us to arm ourselves and hide upstairs. We went up to my little brother's room and looked out the window. There was the clown standing in our driveway, looking up at the window. We were standing at as if he were waiting for us. I shut the blinds and we both ducked down, breathing heavily and panicking. Within 10 minutes, he was gone. Music. I guess he gave up, or at least we think he was gone. For all we knew, he could have been hiding somewhere on the property all night. I'm just happy we made it home in time. If you've seen the news lately, there have been many reports of clowns luring children into the forest. I was one of the first to experience this, and it was utterly terrifying. I want to remain anonymous at the moment, just in case the clown finds out who I am anyways. Here's what happened. I am 14 years old and live in a small town in South Carolina. The town has a population of around 130 people. Summer was just about over, and I had a summer job working at the local lumber yard. It was a great place to work. I helped customers load lumber into their vehicles, a pretty mindless job. Plus, I was able to stay physically fit because of it. The best part is that my house is exactly 1 mile away, walking to and from work as a daily occurrence. I spent a long day hauling and moving lumber, and my workday was pretty much complete. It was about 9:30 p.m. when I started to walk home. The moon was just starting to light up the road, and the sun had completely set below the hills. There are no other houses between the lumberyard and my house. Our town is very rural. The road home has hills that peak high enough that you're unable to see what's on the other side until you crest it. The road is skinny with no shoulder, but it was freshly paved. The trees stack one by one behind each other in a row, and vegetation is thick with a few game trails coming out to the road. Crickets and frogs sound like an orchestra. The walk home usually takes about 30 minutes. I've done it so many times that I entertain myself with music. I put in my earbuds, throw on some tunes, and away I went. I was about halfway home when I heard what sounded like a high-pitched cackling laugh. "What the hell was that?" I said to myself out loud. I took out my earbuds and stopped. I thought maybe it was part of the music, but something about it didn't fit into the song. I stood there motionless, looking to hear the same sound again. However, the frogs croaking were so loud that not even a scream could be heard. I thought nothing of it and walked home. The next day, I started my shift at 2 p.m. I started my walk to work around 1:30. Nothing was out of the ordinary. It was a beautiful day. I usually look down at my feet and kick any rocks that I see. Having them skip across the fresh pavement was oddly satisfying. I kicked a rock, and it skipped across the pavement and landed next to something strange laying in the dirt on the side of the road. It looked to be a bright red ball. I picked it up, I gave it a little pressure, and it squeaked immediately. I knew what it was. "This is a clown nose," I said to myself. "What the hell is this doing out here?" I kept it and carried it to work to show the other staff members. I even put it on and gave it some honks. It got a few laughs. The day went on as usual, and around 9:30 p.m., I clocked out and began my long walk home. I forgot my earbuds at home, so I was unable to listen to my usual music. While on my way home, I was able to make out a faint image of a figure about 150 yards away, of what looked like a deer standing in the middle of the road. It was hard to make out as the fog hovered over the ground, and the moonlight backlit the animal as I got within 100
If
yards.
you've seen the
It must
news
have gotten
lately,
spooked.
there have been many
I could see a
reports of
rough
clowns
outline
luring children
scamper back into the forest. I was one
Little
of the
did
first
I
to
know this was
experience
not a
this,
deer,
and it was
but something
utterly
more
terrifying.
sadistic.
I want to
passed
remain
the spot in
anonymous
which
at
the
the
deer
moment,
had taken
just
off
in
back
case
into
the
the
clown
woods as I
finds
walked
out who
by.
I am anyways. I heard
Here's what
footsteps
happened. I
about
am
20
14
yards
years
behind
old
me.
and live in a small
I
town
thought
in
this
South
was
Carolina.
strange, as I
The
had
town
never
has
seen
a
a deer come back
population of
onto the
around
road.
130 people.
Once it was scared
Summer
off,
was just
before
about
I could
over,
look back, and I had
I
a
heard
summer
hay there.
job working at the local
I
lumber
turned my
yard.
head to see a
It
clown
was a
standing
great
in the
place
middle
to
of the
work.
road with his
I
hands
helped
behind his
customers
back.
load lumber into
He
their
wore
vehicles,
baggy
a
pants
pretty
and a
mindless
baggy
job.
shirt that was obviously
Plus, I
meant
was
to be
able
a
to
clown
stay
costume,
physically fit because
but
of
it was very dirty.
The best part is that
so
my house
dirty
is
that the
exactly
colors
1
faded
mile
into
away.
stains.
Walking
His
to and
makeup
from
ran
work
down
as
his
a daily
face and his
occurrence.
eyes were black.
I spent a long
He
day
tilted his
hauling
head
and
to the
moving
side
lumber,
and said,
and my
"You
workday
have
was
something
pretty
of
much
mine.
complete.
I need it back."
It was about
He gave a
9:30
small little
p.m.
laugh
when I
after he
started to walk
spoke.
home.
The
The moon was
I
just
don't
starting to
have
light up the
anything of
road,
yours,
and the
I
sun
said
had
as I started
completely
to
set
walk
below the
backwards.
hills.
My house was still
There
a
are
quarter
no
mile
other houses
away.
between the lumber
This is
yard
when
and
the
my
situation
house.
went from odd
Our
to
town is
terrifying.
very rural.
He said,
The road
"Well
home
then,
has hills
if you
that
don't
peak
have
high
my
enough
nose,
that
I'm
you're
going to
unable
need
to see
yours."
what's on the other
He
side
pulled
until you
something
crest
out
it.
from behind his
The
back.
road is
and
skinny
I'm
with
not
no
going to
shoulder,
lie,
but it
looked
was
like a
freshly
machete.
paved. I turn
trees
around
stack
and
with
one
all
by
my might,
one
I take
behind
off
each other
running
in a
down
row.
the middle of the road,
And
I
vegetation
could
is
hear his
thick with
bare
a few
feet
game
running.
trails coming
I
out to the
didn't
road.
look back as it
Crickets and
slow me
frogs
down
sound
the
like an
blades
orchestra of what I
The walk
assume
home
were two
usually
machetes
takes about
dragged
30
on the
minutes.
asphalt. I've done
I was
it
in
so
great
many
shape,
times that I
but I could
entertained
still
myself
hear
with
his
music.
footsteps getting
I
louder,
put in my earbuds,
signaling
throwing some
he was
tunes
getting
and away I
closer
went.
to me.
I was
He would
about
even
halfway
let out a
home
little
when I heard
giggle
what sounded
that
like
would
a
feed my
high-pitched
adrenaline
cackling
even
laugh.
more.
What
My
the hell
lungs
was
started
that?
to burn. I said to
I
myself
began
out
to
loud,
crest
I
the
took
hill.
out my earbuds
At
and
this
stopped.
moment, I could hear him almost
I
right
thought
behind
maybe it
me,
was part of the music,
just about touching
but
me.
something about it
And
didn't
then
fit
out of
into the
nowhere,
song.
a truck
I
crested the
stood
hill
there motionless,
with his headlights
looking to
shining
hear the
on
same
me.
sound again.
I waved my arms
However,
in
the
sheer
frogs
panic.
croaking
He stopped.
were
I
so
quickly
loud
looked
that not
behind
even
me
a
to see
scream could be
nothing.
heard.
No
I
clown,
thought
I tell the
nothing
man
of
in
it
the truck
and
what
walked
happened,
home.
and he called the
The
police.
next day, I started my
I
shift
will
at
never
2
make that
p.m.
walk again.
I started my
I
walk
have
to
no
work
idea how
around
the
the
clown
clown
got
to that location.
Nothing was out of
and
the
why he
ordinary.
waited
It was
for
a
me.
beautiful day. I have never seen
I
any
usually look
vehicles
down at
parked
my
there,
feet and kick any
nor
rocks
are there
that I see
any
having
other
them
houses
skip
besides
across the fresh
mine for
pavement.
miles.
Was oddly satisfying.
This was my worst nightmare.
I kicked a rock,
Come
and it
true
skipped
now,
across the
I have
pavement
found
and
out
landed
that
next
this
to
is
something
happening to more
strange,
people
laying
laying
in the dirt
on
on
the
the
side
side
of
of
the
the
road,
road, stalking people.
It looked to be a bright
this a
red
cult?
ball.
A group
I
of
picked
scary
it up.
clowns
I
with a
gave it a
goal to
little
terrify
pressure,
people,
and it squeaked
I have
immediately.
no idea.
I knew what it was,
but I do know that I'll
this is
never
a
be able to
clown
walk in the
nose.
dark
I said to
or see
myself,
clowns the same way
what
again.
the hell is this doing out